Morning everybody, how are y'all doing today? I'm doing great myself because today we finally have a video to look at regarding the PlayStation 5 price increase in select countries. Now for those of you who do not know, or if you don't remember, I did a video a while back where I was talking about how the PS5's price could be going up because of a quote that came from like a Sony conference or something like that where they said the idea of increasing the price wasn't off the table for them. And I, as well as many other people like Review Tech USA, were saying, hey, this is just corporate speak for it's going to happen eventually, we just don't know when. And what do you know, we were right about it, because now I think all over Europe, in Canada, and in a bunch of other countries, maybe Australia, I'm not exactly sure, but whatever, in a ton of countries, the PS5 is getting a price increase. Granted, it's not massive. I think it's like the equivalent of like $40 US or something like that, but nonetheless, it's still the same product and you're paying a higher price for it. Now, I've actually been trying to find a PlayStation fanboy defending this for a little bit, but I think most of those people are actually on Twitter, and you know, I don't touch Twitter with a 39.5-foot pole, but anyway, I finally found a video of a PlayStation fanboy defending the price point, and basically in this video, not spoiling too much, but basically he tries to argue that it's okay for Sony to do it because Microsoft and Nintendo aren't doing it. That definitely was not the best explanation, but honestly, this video is kind of all over the place. The logic is a little weird, so I think without further ado, we should just get into it.
What's happening, guys? Super over here, back with another video. And before we get into it, just want to let you know that my God of War Ragnarok giveaway is still ongoing. So if you'd like to throw your name in that hat, go comment on either one of the last two videos I made. There's one about Saints Row Remake, and there's one about The Last of Us Part 1 Remake. Just be sub to my channel, comment on the video, and that will give you an entry into the giveaway, which will be for a digital code of God of War Ragnarok that will be given out when the game actually launches. And with that out of the way, let's get into this video.
And I want to be honest with you. When I heard this news about the PS5 prices increasing overseas and certain territories, I honestly didn't give a shit, right? Like, I don't fucking care.
Yeah, because you're a PlayStation fanboy and you don't live in one of those countries. Of course you're not going to care. Now, if Microsoft or Nintendo did this, you would probably, you know, start screeching from the high heavens about it. But because PlayStation's doing it, that makes it perfectly okay.
It doesn't really affect me because I already have a PS5 and because I live in America where the price isn't being adjusted. And honestly, I felt like it wasn't really that big of a deal. Like, prices of shit are going up everywhere, and we're coming out of this global pandemic, and I just kind of chalked it up as like, you know how when you have an earthquake there are aftershocks, that this is just an after effect of the global pandemic that is affecting all kinds of shit.
Buddy, we've been out of this pandemic for like a year or so now, something like that. The pandemic's been over for a little while now. If this truly was a pandemic issue, this would have been done a while ago. Also, I'm aware he's going to bring this up soon, but I'm just going to ask the question now. If this is such a big issue, why are Microsoft and Nintendo not raising the prices of their products? Also, the whole like COVID argument, honestly, that goes more in favor of why we should bring the prices of stuff down. Because, you know, during COVID, people lost their jobs, people didn't have as much money to spend, so therefore, if Microsoft and Sony wanted to continue to sell products, it would have been better for them to lower the prices of stuff. I'm not saying I'm advocating for the prices of the consoles to be lowered, because I think they're fine just as they are. I'm just saying that if you're gonna make the argument about, like, oh, COVID messing things up, I mean, that goes more in favor of lowering the prices if you really think about it.
So I really didn't see the big deal. But of course, what made it a big deal is the fact that Nintendo and Xbox are not doing the same thing. And so you immediately get console fanboys using it as a way to wage the ongoing console war. Ha ha, my company's not raising prices, your company is, your company's trash.
I mean, this isn't even console war stuff. I mean, yeah, console fanboys turn it into console war stuff like yourself, but just put down the console wars for a second. This is about the fact that, you know, prices are going up for everything else. And so because of that, people have less money to spend, and now, you know, these luxury items like gaming consoles and stuff, which are just supposed to be forms of entertainment, these prices are now going up as well. It's just extremely scummy. Like, let's take, you know, the gas shortage in America for a second, or not shortage, but like the price increases in America. That happened because guess what? You know, when the whole war with Russia and Ukraine started, we cut them off. We no longer get our gas through Russia, which was is, as far as I know, like our main way of getting it. Therefore, gas is harder to come by, and therefore prices have to go up. And I know somebody's gonna say, oh, well, you could say the same thing for the consoles, because, you know, the semiconductors and the chip shortages and stuff. That is a valid counter argument, but to counter that argument, I did some research, and it turns out that the chip shortage, as a result of, you know, like conflicts between the US and China or whatever it was, basically that started back in September of 2020, which was, you know, before the PS5 even came out. So it's not like it's been harder for them to produce PS5s. It's always been the same level of difficulty. Therefore, they're even less justified in raising the price.
It gives all these gaming news publications negative stories to write, and we all know that when it comes to news, nothing sells better than negative stories, right? Nobody wants to read a positive story. Negative story, ooh, that's that juicy shit, right?
I mean, yeah, negativity does definitely sell. There's no denying that. But hear me out on this one, dude. When a company raises the price of something completely unjustifiably, that sounds like a negative thing to me. I don't think that's people spinning it in a negative way. And I would love to see you try to spin this in a positive way. No, guys, Sony's being nice to us. They're giving us the opportunity to give them even more money for the same product as before.
So if there's something negative to write about or something can be spun in a negative light, that's what's going to happen. Now, even with the news of Nintendo and Xbox not following suit with their price increases, I honestly still just didn't give a shit, right? But people on my live stream yesterday kept asking me what I thought, so last night after the live stream was over, I was kind of thinking about it, and, you know, there are a couple of things about both Nintendo and Xbox that I'm not seeing being a part of this conversation that absolutely should be a part of this conversation. Why that is, I don't know.
I can't wait to hear what this dude has to say. Apparently, there are things that Nintendo and Xbox are doing that are comparable to or even worse than raising the price of the PS5. Even though both Nintendo and Xbox both came out and said that they're not going to raise the price at all. I can't wait to hear this justification.
And I've looked at a bunch of different articles, you know, about this particular topic, and I haven't seen it written anywhere. So yeah, and I'll get into what those things are a little bit later. But first, I want to start by telling you what the explanation we got from PlayStation was as to why they raised their prices. And keep in mind, listen, I'm not defending PlayStation raising the prices.
Dude, this entire video is you defending them, and you're gonna say you're not defending them. Sorry, you know what, you're right, you're not defending them, you're just justifying their greed, my bad.
I'm not saying that raising the prices was okay. I'm not saying that raising the prices wasn't okay. I honestly don't give a shit. I'm very indifferent when it comes to this, right? I also believe that as the manufacturer of that product, they're entitled to charge whatever they want. And then as a consumer, you're entitled to decide whether or not you want to pay that price.
I mean, you're absolutely right. Like you just said, you know, PlayStation can charge whatever price they want for their products. But also, like you just said, that doesn't mean people have to buy them. It also doesn't mean people have to be okay with them. So I don't know why you're about to go into full damage control mode trying to, you know, defend them, or, you know, you say that you're not defending them. But you are, dude. If you weren't, you wouldn't be making this video.
Now, do I think from a PR perspective that it would have been better to have not raised prices? Of course, like that's a given. When you raise the prices on something, people aren't going to celebrate that. It's costing them more money, right? But like I said, I honestly don't care, especially as somebody who already owns a PlayStation and lives in America where the price isn't being adjusted. I don't care. But anyway, here is the reason for the adjustment in other regions provided by PlayStation. The global economic environment is a challenge that many of you around the world are no doubt experiencing. We're seeing high global inflation rates as well as adverse currency trends impacting consumers and creating pressure on many industries. Based on these challenging economic conditions, SIE has made the difficult decision to increase the recommended retail price of PlayStation 5 in select markets across Europe, Middle East and Africa, Asia Pacific, Latin America, as well as Canada. There will be no price increase in the United States.
And I find this really funny because I haven't even seen anyone talk about this yet. I mean, maybe somebody has, but I haven't seen it personally. But in the actual statement, you can see, he just read it out loud. They said that it's impacting consumers as well. Inflation is not just hurting companies, it's hurting consumers. But guess what? Companies can take the hit more than consumers can. Because guess what? Companies, especially like Sony and Microsoft, have just billions of dollars laying around. Or maybe not billions of dollars just laying around. in the case of Sony, but still, Sony still has a boatload of money that they can just dunk into the PlayStation, and they can afford to take a little bit of an extra loss if they have to. Most consumers don't have that luxury. Also, I know he's going to answer this soon, but I'm just going to ask it right now. If, you know, this is such a big issue, then why are Xbox and Nintendo not doing this as well? Again, he's going to answer it. I just want to get that out of the way now. Also, now, I haven't really been following the whole inflation thing too much. Luckily, I'm in a position where I don't really have to. So I just did a little bit of Googling and research to figure out like what the exact rates were and stuff. So if this is wrong, then please correct me. But after doing a quick Google search, it looks like the current US inflation rate is 8.5%. But if you look at some European countries, which, you know, Europe is the main place that the prices are going up, let's take a look here. France is 5.2%, Germany is 7.6%. Now granted, in the United Kingdom, the inflation is higher than the US, but it's only 10% versus the US's 8.5%. I'm not just going to nitpick examples though. Let's go look at Australia now. In Australia, the inflation rate is only 6.1%. Again, less than the United States. China is another place where the price is going up. Their inflation rate, again, this is all from quick Google searching, is only 2.7%. Even Mexico's inflation rate is below the US's at 8.15%. And finally, looking at Canada, it is 7.6%. So the only country from, you know, the researching I've done that it could even be justified to increase the price in is in the United Kingdom. And even then, their inflation rates are barely higher than the US's. I guarantee the only reason they're not increasing the price in the US is probably because of the other issues like gas prices and stuff like that. As far as I know, we relied the most heavily on Russia for gas compared to other countries. Again, I could be wrong about that, but as far as I know, that's the case. So again, the only slightly justifiable country is the United Kingdom. Sorry that went on for a while, but I didn't want to, you know, exclude any examples because, you know, I don't want it to look like I'm selectively cherry picking or something like that to make my point seem more valid.
While this price increase is a necessity given the current global economic environment and its impact on SIE's business, our top priority continues to be improving the PS5 supply situation so that as many players as possible can experience everything the PS5 offers and what's still to come. So that's the reason given by PlayStation. Is that the truth? I don't know. Are they lying? I don't know. Are they doing this just to make more money? I don't know.
And yet you're still gonna sit here and defend them for it. Sounds like a PlayStation fanboy to me.
All I know is that the reason given by them is that they are changing the price in certain regions because of economic situations. And it's kind of hard to say that's bullshit when we see these economic situations affecting everything else in our lives all around the world. Now, that being said, of course, the first thing I'm going to get hit with is, yeah, but Supernova, Nintendo and Xbox are not doing the same thing. So clearly, PlayStation doesn't have to either.
I mean, that seems like a pretty valid argument to me, but, you know what, let's go ahead and hear why Sony needs to do it, even though Microsoft and Nintendo don't. Even though, you know, Nintendo is worth half of what Sony is, and they're still not doing it. So please, nobody say, because I know he's going to say it in this video, but nobody say that, oh, you know, Microsoft, they can afford it because, you know, they're super rich, they're Microsoft, they got trillions of dollars. Nintendo is worth half of what Sony is, and they're not doing it either, so I don't want to hear that.
So if Nintendo's not doing it, and Xbox isn't doing it, the only reason PlayStation must be doing it is because they're evil, greedy bastards. They've gone back to the fucking arrogant ways of the PS3 generation, where they feel they can charge whatever the fuck they want for their console. Oh, that's the only... If clearly, Xbox and Nintendo aren't doing it, but PlayStation is. They don't need to do it. PlayStation doesn't need to do it either, and they're only doing it because they're evil, greedy bastards. And yes, this is what you hear all around the internet from fanboys.
No, dude, this is not fanboy arguments. This is what any logical person with a half-functioning brain cell would say. But want to know what is a fanboy argument? Saying that your favorite company is allowed to do it because they're your favorite company. And then you say you're not trying to defend them in a video where you're defending them. That is what fanboys say.
And then you get negative article after negative article after negative article saying like, wow, how could they do this? Oh, why are they doing this? And it's like, yo, They fucking told us the reason why they increased the price in certain regions. They gave us the reason why.
I could have sworn like a minute ago you admitted that they could have been lying about that. But yeah, sure, now we're going to take it at face value because it fits the argument. Also, we still haven't heard a single reason from you on why it's okay for them to increase the price.
And now I'm going to get into the shit about both Xbox and Nintendo that I'm not seeing being said anywhere, and it's like, why is this not part of the conversation? So when you ask the question, well, why isn't Xbox doing it? The answer to that one's really fucking simple. They don't have to.
Yeah, and neither does Sony, so what's your point? No company has to charge more for a product. Hell, depending on how much people are buying it, they might actually have to charge less for a product.
Microsoft has almost infinite funds. Microsoft and Xbox can weather the storm. They can afford to weather the storm of the after effects of the global pandemic and wait for shit to go back to the way it was. They've got almost bottomless pockets.
I wouldn't say Sony has a bottomless pocket, but they definitely have a pretty damn deep one. And I think I said this before, but if this was such an issue before with, you know, the pandemic and stuff and, you know, oh, Sony can't afford this, then how come it's been this way for almost 2 years of the PS5's life cycle? We were still in pandemic mode back when the PS5 came out, but now that we're out of pandemic mode, they're going to try to raise the price. I wonder why that is. And again, I guess you can make the argument that Microsoft has bottomless pockets, but again, Sony is worth double what Nintendo is worth. So what's your argument going to be for that? Spoiler alert, it's going to be a god-awful one.
Now, is that the reason why they're not increasing the price? I don't know. That is absolutely 100% speculation on my part, I will admit. But if you were to look at this situation logically, Microsoft and Xbox can weather the storm. They have more than enough money to do so.
I mean, if you were looking at this logically, you would accept the fact that Nintendo is worth half of what Sony is, and they're not doing it, so that alone proves that Sony isn't justified in this. But, I mean, we're talking about fanboy logic, not actual logic.
PlayStation is not in the same boat financially that Microsoft and Xbox are. So why isn't Xbox raising prices in other regions as well? They don't need to. They can weather this fucking storm. Why no one is saying this, or why I'm not seeing this be a part of the conversation, I don't understand, because it should be a part of the conversation.
And let me make something clear also. If my theory is correct, and the reason why Xbox and Microsoft aren't raising the prices is because they can weather the storm, well then, I think we really need to give props to Xbox and Microsoft, because they could have very easily raised the prices in those regions just like PlayStation has, and nobody would have batted an eye.
I mean, I will give him credit where credit's due. At least he is crediting Microsoft for not doing it. But at the same time, he admitted earlier they have near bottomless pockets. Like you said, they don't need to, even though, you know, Sony doesn't need to either. Also, I love like that little hint that people are almost biased against PlayStation, at least according to him, because, you know, he just said that, oh, Microsoft could have done this and people wouldn't have batted an eye. No, honestly, dude, I think people would have been even more upset if Microsoft did this because, you know, like you said, they have way more money to work with. Like, no company, Microsoft, Nintendo, or Sony, none of them are justified in raising the prices of consoles, but if Microsoft were to do it, I think it would be the biggest deal. That doesn't mean that it's not a big deal if the other two did it, but I'm just saying that, you know, it would in fact be the biggest deal if they did it. So please, just don't try to act like there's bias against PlayStation, when it's obviously been the most popular choice since, like, the PlayStation 4 era.
So if my theory is correct and the reason that they didn't raise the prices is because they can weather that storm, well then we really need to give props to Xbox and Microsoft because they are taking it on the chin when they don't have to, when there were other ways for them to not have to, right? So not trying to take anything away from Xbox in this situation. I'm just trying to say that the fact that they can weather that storm should be part of this conversation, and I'm not seeing it anywhere as part of this conversation.
Now here comes the one that really fucking cracks me up, and again, something I'm not hearing anybody say when it comes to Nintendo. Because you get these people, oh, well, Nintendo's not raising the price.
Alright, here we go, boys and girls. Get ready to flush your brain cells down the toilet, because I think they'll be more effective down there than they will be in your brain after you hear this.
Bro, Nintendo is selling the Nintendo Switch, a console that is less powerful than consoles from last generation, that is 5 years old, for the same price that it launched 5 years ago.
And guess what? Sony and Microsoft have been charging the same price for their consoles for the last 2 years. Oh, and fun fact, the power of the hardware that is inside the Series X and the PS5 is roughly equivalent to an RTX 2070, which came out 4 years ago. So we can look at the situation the exact same way. Sony is planning to increase the price for a console whose hardware was 2 years old when it came out. And I'm not trying to twist your words or anything, dude, but it's very easy to interpret what you're saying as it's okay for Sony to raise the price of their console because Nintendo hasn't raised the price of their console. I'm not trying to twist your words or anything, but that's really what it sounds like you're saying.
Nintendo doesn't have to raise prices on the Switch, because even with whatever economic hits they could be taking, they're probably still making a profit on the fucking Switch. Like, why is nobody talking about this? And also, why is nobody upset about that?
So let me get this straight. People should be mad at Nintendo because they haven't raised the price of their hardware. Do I have that right? And let's assume that what he means is, oh yeah, you know, they haven't lowered the price once in 5 years. My guy, the Switch is still well worth $300 even 5 years later. And plus, I don't think I've ever seen a game console like modern day go for less than $300. I think the lowest I've ever seen was the PS4 towards the end of the generation, but that's just because they were trying to sell all of them before the PS5 came out. But besides that, the only one I've seen that low is the Xbox One S at $300. But either way, power does not necessarily equate to how much a console should cost. If that was the case, then nobody would have bought a Switch because, you know, it's very underpowered and it would have sold like crap. You can have an underpowered piece of hardware that still sells really well. I mean, the Steam Deck is another great example. Hell, even the PS4 and Xbox One were underpowered when they came out, and they still sold well. Well, you know, the PS4 did, I guess. And in regards to the whole profit argument, guess what, dude? Sony wasn't profiting off of the PS5 anyway. They were taking a loss anyway, so the inflation really wouldn't hurt them much at all. And again, they don't have Microsoft level, you know, bottomless pockets, but they still have a boatload of money.
Could you imagine paying the same price for a PS5 5 years after it launched?
Fuck no!
Could you imagine paying the same price for an Xbox Series X 5 years after it launched?
Fuck no!
I mean, at this rate, dude, you're absolutely right. We won't be paying the same price for a PS5 5 years from now. We'll be paying even more for it.
Nintendo is selling a console that is less powerful than a PS4 Pro and an Xbox One S for the same price it launched at 5 years ago, which is $100 less than a PlayStation 5 digital. Nobody's got a problem with that.
No, because they're not increasing the price. They've kept it the same. Basically, what I'm getting from this video is you want people to have a problem with not having to pay extra money for a product. PlayStation fanboy logic is so backwards it honestly hurts.
The PlayStation 5 is going up by like $40 in certain regions around the world, and people are losing their fucking minds. Nintendo is selling a console less powerful than last-gen consoles for the same price it charged 5 years ago when it fucking launched, which is $100 less than a PS5 digital. Nobody says a fucking word.
Yeah, and don't you think there's a reason for that? Because, you know, I don't study human behavior too often or anything like that, or at all, really, for that matter. But typically, if a lot of people are agreeing on something and nobody brings up this one point that you're trying to make, maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe there's not too much validity to your point. Because basically what it sounds like you're arguing right now is that you want to pay more for a product and you think people should be upset when companies don't force them to spend extra money on something. Dude, did Jim Ryan hire you to make this video? Hey, yo, President Jim Ryan, I know you're probably watching this. In the comments, did you hire this man to make this video?
So why is Nintendo raising the price on the Nintendo Switch? Because, motherfucker, they're still making a profit on these fucking things. It doesn't matter what the economic conditions are. Think about it. They are building 5-year-old hardware for the same price that they charged 5 years ago.
Yeah, and now Sony is building 4-year-old hardware for the same price that they charged 2 years ago. Oh, sorry, not the same price, for an even higher price than what they were charging 2 years ago. My bad.
With consoles like PlayStation and Xbox, about 2-3 years in, we get the slim model with a price cut. It costs less money to make that product. You think it cost Nintendo the same thing to make a Switch as it did 5 years ago? Fuck no!
I mean, do you think it cost Sony and Microsoft the same to make the product that they were making 2 years ago? Hell no.
So whatever the economic conditions are globally, however they are affecting Nintendo, Nintendo's still making a fucking profit on this fucking thing. They don't need to increase the price on the Switch. They're making money hand over fist selling 5-year-old hardware for the same fucking price they charged 5 years ago. And let's be honest, the Switch was already outdated when it launched. When it launched and it was brand new, it was already weaker than existing hardware. So yeah, the Switch is 5 years old, but it's really more like hardware that's fucking 7 years old.
Yeah, and guess what? The PS5 and Xbox Series X may only be 2 years old, but the hardware is 4 years old. Same situation, it's just that they've been selling the hardware for less time. If the price stayed the same, nobody would have a problem with that, but since it's going up, that's where the problem comes in. I can't remember the last time the price of a console went up after it came out.
Again, why this isn't part of the conversation and why people aren't upset about that is beyond me, because in my opinion, that's the thing that people should be upset about. Instead of people being mad that PlayStation is raising prices in certain regions around the world, people should be mad that Nintendo hasn't given a fucking price cut to the Switch since it launched 5 years ago.
Remember guys, he's not defending PlayStation though, he's just trying to deflect the blame to a whole nother console manufacturer. He's not defending PlayStation though.
And then people have the balls to say that PlayStation are the greedy ones. PlayStation are the arrogant ones. Are you fucking kidding me? Nintendo doesn't understand the meaning of price cut.
And clearly they don't understand the meaning of price increase either, which is why people are perfectly okay with it. That's also why people have a problem with Sony increasing the price, because this isn't the first time Sony has done this either. I'm not talking about with the PS5 specifically, but I mean, look at their games as well. Their games have gone up to $70 now, even if they're just last-gen games that can be played on the PS5 as well. And they're charging upgrade fees for them, so even if you buy the PS4 version, you can't upgrade to the PS5 version for free. You still have to pay extra money for it. And this is why people have a problem. This is a pattern of behavior with Sony where they try to get away with increasing prices of things with no justification. And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, especially the $70 games thing, they've gotten away with it.
Excuse me, Nintendo. Do you think that the Switch will ever get a price cut?
Price cut. Sumimasen, Ricky, damimasen. I am very sorry, but I do not understand price cut.
So yeah, long story short, what are my thoughts on the situation? Like I said, I really don't care about PlayStation increasing the price in other regions. They've given us their reason for why they've done it, and to me that reason makes sense.
Again, earlier in this video, you said that they could be lying about it and you weren't sure. But now all of a sudden you just believe them and you're taking it at face value, and what they said makes complete sense. Fanboy logic if I've ever heard it. But anyway, guys, that's basically the end of the video. He just kind of recaps his thoughts and says he doesn't care what anyone else thinks. You know, for when he's inevitably going to receive backlash over this video, which obviously he very much has, as you can see by the like to dislike ratio in the thumbnail. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Like the video if you liked it. Dislike it if you didn't like it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I will catch you all next time.